So today we're continuing to talk about polynomials, but now we're talking about adding and subtracting polynomials. And so what you're going to see is you're going to see like a parentheses. This represents one polynomial plus another parentheses. This represents a different polynomial. Now, if you want to add them, really what you're doing is you're taking this plus sign and you're distributing it to each of the numbers in the second parentheses. But a plus sign does not change anything. 2x is still a positive 2x, 5x is still a positive 5x, and 2 is still a positive 2. And if they were negative, they would still be negative. The plus doesn't change anything. So you can just ignore the plus sign and combine like terms. And you see that here, the 5x squared plus 2x squared is 7x squared. The 4x plus 5x is 9x. And then the 1 plus 2 is 3. So if you're adding polynomials, it's just like when we were simplifying polynomials. You can just combine like terms. The part you have to be really, really, really careful of is when you are subtracting polynomials, you got to distribute that negative sign. And when you it's really a -1. So what you're doing is you're really multiplying each of these times -1. But what that does, when you multiply times a negative, it just changes the sign. So anytime you distribute a negative sign, you have to change the sign of everything in the parentheses. So instead of right here, 3 was positive, instead of positive, it became negative. And then here, x was negative, so we changed it to positive. And then here, 5 was positive, so we changed it to negative. You have to make sure anytime you see a minus sign that you distribute that negative to everything after it, everything in the parentheses after it. And then you can combine like terms just like what we've been doing. So 5x squared minus 3x squared is 2x squared. 3x plus x is 4x. And then -6 minus 5 is a -11. Something that I didn't mention on the last video that I wish that I would have mentioned, when you're combining like terms, you know, we use Desmos for a lot of things, right? But one thing you can't do is you can't type in 2x plus 3x and get 5x. Desmos does not tell you that. You have to know that when you combine like terms, you can just leave off the x's and then add the x back on the answer. So if you didn't know what 2 plus 3 was, you could add it up and get 5, and then just make sure when you write your answer, you put an x on it. So I wanted to mention that about Desmos. You can't type it in with the letter. You just have to put the letter on afterwards. All right, so let's jump in and try some of these. I'm always going to check my sign in the middle first. Since this is a plus sign, I don't have to change any signs. I'm just going to rewrite them. So I'm just going to write 9m plus 6. I'm writing them without the parentheses. And then plus -4m minus 6. And now I'm going to combine like terms. I have 9m first, so I'm looking for other m's. Oh, and I see a -4m. 9m minus 4m. Again, you can't go to Desmos and type in 9m minus 4m, but if you don't know 9 minus 4, you could type that part in and get 5, and then just make sure that you put m on your answer. And then you have a +6 and a -6. 6 minus 6 is 0, and you typically don't write a 0, so your final answer here would just be 5 m's. Over here, again, I'm always going to check for my sign in between the parentheses first. Because it's a plus sign, I don't have to change any signs. I can just rewrite all of this without the parentheses. So 2r squared plus 6r plus 1 plus 4r squared minus 8r minus 2. All right, first thing I see is 2r squared. So I'm going to look through for any other r squareds. I have one here. I have a +4r squared. And then I keep looking. Okay, these are my only two. So 2r squareds plus 4r squareds, that's going to be 6r squared. And then I'm going to do, next I have a 6r, so I'm going to look and see if I have any other r's. Yep, I have a -8r. Remember, when you circle these, always keep the sign that's in front of it. And like here, if you don't see a sign, you know that that's positive. So 6r minus 8r, that's going to be a -2r. But let's say you didn't know that in your brain and you wanted to check it in your calculator. Remember, you can't type the r in the calculator, so you would just do 6 minus 8 get the -2, and then put the r back on your answer. And then we have a +1 and a -2, and 1 minus 2 is -1. But always feel free to check things in your calculator. +1 and a -2, that equals -1. We can't combine this any further because r squareds aren't the same as r's, which aren't the same as numbers, so we are done. All right. Again, we're going to always check that sign in the middle first. Here we have a minus sign. That is super important. That means that I have to distribute the negative, which is just a really fancy way of saying change the signs. Since 9h is currently positive, I'm going to make it a negative. Since 4 is currently positive, I'm going to make it a negative. And I'm just going to write down the 3h plus 1. I didn't have to do anything to those. Now that I've changed the sign of everything in the second parentheses or after my minus sign, now I can combine like terms. 3h minus 9h is a -6h. Let's say you don't know 3 minus 9 in your brain. That's fine. Go to the calculator and type in 3 minus 9. You cannot type it in with the h's, but you can still do 3 minus 9 to get the -6, and then just put the h back on your answer. And then we have a +1 and a -4, and 1 minus 4 is -3. We can't combine those any further, so that is our final answer. So let's check out this one. We always want to check the sign in the middle first, and it is a minus sign, so we have to distribute that negative. And remember, distributing the negative is just fancy math talk for change all those signs. So since -3w squared, or since it was negative, we're going to make it a +3w squared. Since this was positive, we're going to make it a -3w. And since 5 was negative, we're going to make it a +5. All I did was switch the signs, right? The negative became a positive became a negative, and negative became a positive. For this piece, I'm just going to bring it straight down. I don't have to do anything to the first one. And now I can combine like terms. I have -7w squared first. So I'm going to skim through and see if there's any other w squareds. And there's one right here. So -7 plus 3, that would be a -4. And then you just put the w squared on it. The next I see -2w. I'm going to look and see if there's any other w's. Yep, there's a -3w. So -2w minus 3w is a -5w. And remember, I know I'm going through this quickly, but please remember you can always type in the numbers without the letters. So if you weren't sure, you could do -2 minus 3, and that tells you -5, and then you just put your letter back on it. And then we have a -1 and a +5, which is a +4. So that is our final answer. We can't combine it any further. All right, look at the given rectangle. Write a polynomial expression in simplest form for the perimeter of the rectangle. So for this, you have to remember that in perimeter, you add up all the sides. So I'm just going to start writing them down. I'm going to write down this one first. So I have 2x minus 1 plus, and then I'm going to write down the next side, 5x plus 4 plus, I'm going to write down this one, 2x minus 1 plus, and then this one, 5x plus 4. So in order to find the perimeter, I am simply adding all 4 sides together. And now I need to go through and combine like terms. So I'm going to start with my 2x, and I'm going to skim for any other x's. All right, here we have a positive 5x. Ooh, that was a mistake. Because remember, you want to keep the sign that's in front of it. So I need that positive sign in front of it. Then I have a positive 2x, and then I have a positive 5x. So 2 plus 5 is 7, plus 2 is 9. Oh, you know what? This would have been a lot easier if I did 5 plus 5 is 10, 2 plus 2 is 4. So add all those together, and it's 14. If you didn't know that in your brain, go to your calculator and do 2 plus 5 plus 2 plus 5 without the x's, and then just put the x on your answer. All right, then I have a -1, a +4, a -1, and a +4. So you can do this in your brain or your calculator. In my brain, 4 plus 4 is 8, minus 2 is 6. But if I wasn't confident about that, I could go to my calculator and I could type it in. -1 plus 4, -1, +4, and it tells me that it is 6. You can't combine 14 x's with 6 numbers, so you are done. That's your final answer in simplest form. All right, good luck on this quick check.